DJ microphone number one. It's been a minute since the DJ has had a chance to check in sound. Man, I miss it. This was the only way that my boss actually knew that I was working, because he would see me on the feeds. Is everybody happy? Nope, I see my CNN boys doing their thing. Look at them, smiling faces. Sometime, check, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Everybody happy? Mr. Makunga Juggy, are you happy? All right, I see a lot of thumbs. Excellent. Okay, Stamp. Well, the manager wants to speak. Stand by.
Testing. I am the Director of Corporate Communications and Media Affairs here at Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport. Thank you very much for joining us as we move forward toward this holiday travel weekend. We're going to hear from representatives of the airports, obviously the mayor of the city of Atlanta, the administrator for TSA, and then industry leaders. Once complete, we will open it up for questions. Feel free to ask once they are done. It is now my pleasure and my privilege to introduce one of my bosses, the Deputy General Manager for Operations here at Hartsfield-Jackson, Ms. Jan Lennon.
Thank you, thank you. Thank you so much, Andy, for that. Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jan Lennon, Deputy General Manager of Operations here at Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport. On behalf of ATL General Manager Ballroom Birdari, we thank you for joining us today for this conference to kick off the summer travel season. The busiest Memorial Day travel weekend begins this week. The world's busiest and most efficient airport is here and ready to serve you. We appreciate our partnership with TSA, and together we will assist thousands and hundreds of people passing through our screening checkpoint. This year, more than 2 million passengers are expected to travel through ATL over the Memorial Day holiday weekend, Thursday, May 25th through Wednesday, May 31st. Our peak travel days are projected to be this Thursday and Friday with more than 300,000 passengers, and Monday is just as busy. It takes all of us to ensure that our travel is safe and efficient. As you'll probably notice, Hartsfield-Jackson is undergoing a massive renovation. We are always growing. It is part of our multi-billion-dollar capital improvement program, ATL Next. While we don't expect busy travel season to affect our ongoing construction, you should know that parking deck renewal project at Hartsfield-Jackson is underway. Some levels of north parking decks will remain closed for construction. So we ask that you consider using ATL West decks and some parking on the south side as one of your options. Please arrive early. Get here at least 2 hours if you're traveling domestically and 3 hours if you're traveling international. Please be vigilant. If you see something, say something. Call 911. 911 calls made at our airport goes directly to our Central Command Control Center, which allows us to respond quickly anywhere on this airport campus. Remember, security is everyone's business. So with that said, I now would like to bring to the podium a visionary, strategic, and engaged transformation leader, our very own 61st Mayor, the Honorable Andre Dickens.
Good afternoon. And thank you, Jan, for that introduction. And it's good to see our Congresswoman Nakima Williams here, someone that's very much a stalwart on our transportation across the United States. I'd also like to acknowledge all of the airport and air industry leadership that is with us here today, representing all facets of air transportation businesses. It's a pleasure to welcome all of you to our beautiful city of Atlanta. Of course, this is going to be a very busy travel season. Here in Atlanta, many of us are still trying to make up for the time we lost during the pandemic. So you see a lot of Atlantans are booking travel. But here at the world's busiest and most efficient airport, we are ready. Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport knows how to move people and their cargo swiftly and safely from one place to another. Last year, we served more passengers and conducted more aircraft movements than any other airport in the world. Our airport general manager, B. Biodori, and his team are pretty good at getting things done, such as moving people across this globe. AAA says around 3 million people will travel over this upcoming holiday weekend right here in Atlanta. I am certain that many of those folks will pass through Hartsfield-Jackson. As I said earlier, we are ready. We didn't become the world's #1 airport in customer service by accident. And I'd also encourage our visiting executives, as well as visiting media, to make the most of their time while here in Atlanta. Atlanta is consistently ranked one of our country's top travel destinations. Now, I'd like to introduce the man who can tell us just how busy we will be this holiday season and this summer, TSA Administrator David Pakowski. Come on up, David. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Mr. Mayor, thank you very much for that kind introduction, and really thank you for hosting our annual summer travel roundtable. So it's great to be here at Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport. Jan, I appreciate the kickoff this morning, as well Andy for being our MC at the very beginning. We have a number of industry representatives with us today. They will follow me in the presentation, and then we'll be happy to take questions from the media. But as we talked about, summer is going to be busy. And for TSA, one of the things we always look at is how busy was spring break. And so if we look at the past spring break, it was very busy, busier than normal. Average number of passengers in the month of April going through TSA checkpoints nationwide was about 2.3 million every single day. We had one of our very busiest days yesterday. Across the nation, 2.67 million people went through TSA screening. That's about a 12% increase over the number just last year, and that is also the highest number since the pandemic. So we are definitely out of pre-pandemic, or we're back to pre-pandemic levels and out of the pandemic recovery. We have fully recovered in aviation. We expect, as was said, Thursday and Friday to be very busy, as well as Monday. And we figure that we will see 2.6 million people on a regular basis across this holiday weekend, about 10 million people traveling through airports over the course of the entire weekend. So it's going to be very, very busy. Mayor said, and Jan said, we're ready. From TSA's perspective, we are ready. We have more staff on hand this year than we had last year, which is a good thing because we have more passengers this year than we had last year. But one of the key drivers for that is an initiative that was submitted by the President and approved by the Congress in December of this year to finally, for the first time in TSA's history, to pay our employees off the same pay scale that other federal employees are paid. And I think that our employees richly deserve that recognition. They work hard across the entire enterprise. And to give you a sense for what that means to our employees, for the uniform screening officers you see in our checkpoint, that represents about a 30% pay increase last year to this year beginning on the 1st of July. For our federal air marshals that provide in-flight security and security in transportation hubs, it's about a 20% increase. And then all the other people that support our security operation that many passengers don't see on a regular basis. These would be our intelligence professionals, our operations center watchstanders, people that directly manage our security operations in airports like Atlanta, our canine handlers, our explosives experts, and our inspectors, both domestic and international. Already, as a result of this initiative, we have seen our attrition rates, the number of people that leave every year, drop by 50%. So you got to think about that for a second. More people, by far, are staying in TSA, which is exactly what we thought we would see as a result of this pay initiative. So it's critically important that this pay initiative carry through into fiscal 24 as it was passed in fiscal 23, so that we can have pay that continues to match forevermore the pay of other federal employees in the U.S. government. So as I said, staffing levels are better this year than they were a year ago. I think that that will show its worth over the course of, it certainly has over the course of spring break, and certainly will over the course of the summer. We also have as part of TSA, an element called the National Deployment Force. And what this is about 1,000 certified officers who we asked to volunteer. So we went across the entire agency, asked for volunteers for people who would be willing to leave their home airport and go on a temporary basis to other airports around the country that may have a certain event going on or may have a different staffing challenge than their home airport has. So we have about 1,000 volunteers. So you got to think about that for a second. We just asked for volunteers. We had 1,000 people raise their hands and say, I'd like to do that. And these individuals we will use over the course of the entire summer to provide additional staffing where needed. So it represents a great deal of flexibility on the part of our screening workforce. As far as weight standards, I expect that we'll maintain our weight standard of 30 minutes or less in standard lanes on average, and 10 minutes or less in pre-check lanes. And let me talk about pre-check for a second, because I've got one big announcement to make this afternoon. But before I do that, let me just say that TSA PreCheck now has 15 million members in TSA PreCheck. It broke a threshold that we had established for ourselves. We have reduced the cost of PreCheck in terms of the initial enrollment and the re-enrollment fees. We have also increased the number of enrollment centers around the country, so it's easier and easier to sign up for TSA PreCheck. What I'm happy to announce today is that we are allowing teenagers ages 13 to 17 to accompany their PreCheck enrolled parents or guardians through TSA PreCheck screening when they travel on the same reservation as their parent or guardian. So really important change. If you have a teenager, you're a PreCheck member, your teenager can travel with you through PreCheck, and just double check to make sure that the PreCheck symbol is on their boarding pass, electronic or paper. I would also highlight that for a long time, we have permitted children 12 years and under to travel with a PreCheck member in our PreCheck lane. So this basically covers now all minors that are traveling with a parent or guardian in PreCheck. PreCheck enrollment, I would highlight, only takes about 5 minutes. And for many, many travelers, if you apply for TSA PreCheck online, it will take you about 5 minutes. We will send you a very quick notification to appear at one of our enrollment centers. That's a very quick process as well. It's highly likely that for the majority of people that enroll, they will have what's known as a known traveler number, or a KTN, which is the number you put in your airline profile to indicate that you have TSA PreCheck, usually within about 5 business days. So think about all this for a second. We have increased the number of people in PreCheck. We have reduced enrollment fees. We have reduced re-enrollment fees, and we've expanded the number of people covered by PreCheck just by the very nature that teens traveling with a parent or guardian can travel on their guardian or parent's PreCheck registration. In addition to PreCheck, some other tips for this summer that I'd just like to emphasize. One is to pack an empty bag. What that means is when you're packing either your carry-on bag or your check bag, particularly your carry-on bag, just make sure it's empty, because oftentimes we find in our checkpoints people forgot that something was in their carry-on bag. Our X-ray system will detect it. It will slow you down. And perhaps other things may happen to you as a result if you're carrying an item that we prohibit, but it will also slow every passenger that's behind you down. So pack an empty bag. The second is to allow some time. I find that when I travel, and I travel a lot, just adding a little extra time makes it a whole lot more fun. To travel, it means that some unexpected things that come up, and they always will, that you can manage a whole lot better if you've given yourself just a little bit more time. You'll see in our checkpoints around the country that thanks to the support of the President and the Congress, we are deploying new technologies across all of our screening checkpoints. We are trying to make our screening process as frictionless as it possibly can be. For example, no longer do you need to hand over your driver's license or your passport to one of our officers. You can self-serve in many airports around the country. In some, like Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta Airport, you can now use digital IDs. Georgia has agreed to participate in the mobile driver's license program, which means that when you walk up to the TSA checkpoint in pre-check in Georgia, you just simply tap your iPhone on a reader and it reads your license information. So a big advancement there. The other thing that most people will see is new X-ray technology. It looks more modern than what it replaces. And the big difference passengers will see is we now require that all of your accessible property, your carry-on bags, your personal items need to go into bins. Please be aware of that as you go up to the new technology and load the bins as much as you can, but don't load them to the point where things might fall out of them on their way through the X-ray. The other thing is please respect our officers. Please respect all airport and airline employees. We see now, unfortunately, more and more abuse, both verbal and physical abuse of people that work in jobs that really are designed to make sure that you have a safe, secure, and enjoyable travel experience. So please respect them. They respect you. They are doing their very best job to make sure that your journey is safe and secure. Next one is to make sure as you approach the screening checkpoint to have your identification ready. It's a little frustrating for everybody else in line when you've been waiting in line for 2 or 3 minutes and all of a sudden when the person gets up to present their ID, they can't find it. So just have it handy. Believe me, in our screening process, every second counts because it just smooths the flow of everybody else behind you. Last tip is that if you have any questions of TSA, we have now a texting feature where you can just text, Ask TSA. It will go to our coordination center, and in most cases, you'll get a response back in minutes. So if you're heading to the airport and you wonder, hey, can I bring this through the screening checkpoint, just text us, and we will tell you that. So you know, hey, I might have to leave this in my car, or hey, I'm good, I can bring it through the checkpoint. You can also tweet to us at Ask TSA, at Ask TSA. So please use the social media presence that we have. We find it to be incredibly useful to exchange information with travelers in near real time, and I think travelers appreciate that convenience as well. So in closing, let me thank our partners that are here and across the country. One of the things that makes this system so successful that we have in the United States is that all of our partners are working together, whether it's a government agency, a other federal, state, or local agency, or a private sector entity, or not-for-profit entities. We all endeavor to work very, very closely together. For us, when we see a problem, we view it as our collective problem to be able to address, and you will always see us approach things that way. While I have the podium, I would just like to recognize my team in TSA for the terrific work they have done already this calendar year. Very busy spring break, as I mentioned. It's going to be a very, very busy summer. I am really proud of the way they represent the United States, the Department of Homeland Security, and the Transportation Security Administration, and treat you with integrity, respect, and a demonstration of their commitment to our mission. For passengers, I thank all of you for doing your part, for being ready when you travel, for making sure that you don't carry things that are going to cause a concern in our screening checkpoint. And so with that, it's my pleasure to introduce the next speaker, who is Mr. Nick Callio. Nick is the Chief Executive Officer of Airlines for America. He represents many major airlines in the country, and he, like everyone else who will speak after me, has been a great partner, not just with TSA, but across the entire enterprise. So Nick, the podium is yours.
Good afternoon. It's typical. I always have to put the microphone down a little bit. Anyway, Administrator Pekoski, thank you so much for your leadership at TSA. I want to thank you, Mr. Mayor, Congresswoman Williams, for being here, and to my industry partners. TSA does incredible work, and we are very proud to work with them. It is a model of how government and private sector can work together. As the administrator pointed out, when we see a problem, we get on the phone, we talk about it, and we figure it out so we can try to alleviate it so that the traveling public and cargo can get where it needs to go. I also want to thank the Atlanta Airport for your hospitality today. So we do expect a very busy summer. We are finally over pre-pandemic levels. And that's a lot of people are excited about it. We're excited about it. And we're working very hard to make sure that we have a successful summer season. First, our carriers have been hiring aggressively. We hired 50,000 people last year alone. We are staffed up now more than we were prior to the pandemic, and we are at our highest level since in the last 2 decades. We're thrilled about that because we have a post-pandemic staffing model that we have to follow. Our workers, our employees are the backbone of the industry. They work hard every day to make the logistical miracle that is flying happen. 27,000 flights every day, 58 million tons of cargo. It is amazing when you look around and see the number of people it takes to get a single plane off the ground. But what we've done, we found that post-pandemic, because of what has happened, we need more employees for each flight than we had before, because we need that flexibility to make sure that we can be reliable. We also need more employees to staff up because there right now is a shortage of air traffic controllers that can have a very large impact on how we fly and where we can fly and when. So we have trimmed probably about 10% of our flights coming up for this summer, but we're going to carry 2.5% more passengers than we did. What we're doing is flying larger planes in and meeting the demand that way. I'm not sure that that can last forever, but for right now, we're working everything we do to make sure that there aren't any delays. I have some travel tips too. I think my first and foremost travel tip is pray for good weather every day. It's something we can't control. I caught some convective atmosphere or weather in Dallas the other day, and it can really set you back. And we always encourage our passengers to realize that, because whether it's weather, if there's a mechanical issue, we will not put an airplane in the air. We will not fly you unless it's safe to do so. And we do everything we can to make sure that you can get where you want to go. We also encourage people to download the carrier's apps. I'm sure pretty much everybody has them. They're amazing. So I had a flight that was slightly delayed this morning, and I got notice on my way to the airport what was happening and what was going on. You can get a lot more information than that, and now there's also a lot of free entertainment for what it's worth. Look, in closing, I just want to say that make sure you have your ID ready. The administrator referenced it, and it is amazing that people get in the front of the line and then all of a sudden don't have their ID, and sometimes don't have it with them. So anyway, Mr. Administrator, thank you. Thank all the employees at TSA, and again, Mr. Mayor, Congresswoman, all of you for all of your help. And it's my pleasure now to introduce my good old friend, Kevin Burke from Airports Council North America.
Good afternoon, everyone. And thank you, Nick, for that introduction, and Dave, for your leadership of TSA through was probably the most challenging 3 years of many of our careers, but you and your team have done such a great job in handling a very challenging situation and making it safe for people at our nation's airports. Thank you. Thank you, Jan, and all the Atlanta team for making this event happening today. To start off our summer event, we do this every year. We're excited about it happening. And the good news is more people are traveling now than they have been in a long, long time. People are back in airports. Just take a look around you here. This place is packed. I came in here this morning and it's busy, and that's the way it should be. But for the good work of the people here in Atlanta, and Bee's not here today, but I want to thank Bee and the entire team for all the great work you've done. I wanted to welcome the Congresswoman, who's not here right now, but I think she left. The Mayor, thank you for being here to show us your wonderful, beautiful airport, your busy, wonderful, beautiful airport, and all the work that you've done to help Bee and his team make this the best and most efficient and busiest airport in the world, right? I got your tagline there, right? There we go. So 3 years after the pandemic, I'm very encouraged, ladies and gentlemen, by the work that has been done to get us back on track and a part of the air transportation system. We have met the challenge, and here we are today doing far better than any of us ever thought. Now, airports are laser focused on ensuring the best possible passenger experience for all of our guests. We don't call them passengers, we call them our guests. Because the moment they walk in the door to the moment they get on one of Nick's airlines, they are our guests. They're our responsibility, and we want their experience to be as good as possible. And we're doing that. It's a challenge that each airport across the country, our system is confronted, and we've learned through this pandemic, what can we do better? And in working with Dave and his team and working in Customs and Border Protection, we have learned as an industry, cooperation and collaboration are the way to get things done. So speaking of that, we appreciate the collaboration we have with Nick and the Airlines Association, all my airline and airport association members, the government and business partners, which in my view, we have a shared responsibility of getting passengers from point A to point B in the safest and most efficient way possible. And that's the way it's going to be, and it's the way it'll always be. The partnerships that Dave talked about, we could not do our work without these partnerships. It's not about us against them. As Nick said, when we have a problem, we sit down and we work it out. Because if we don't work it out, guess who gets the short end of it? The passenger. And they're not coming here to be disserved. They're coming here to be served. And that's why these relationships are so important. So, some advice as we move forward here. As somebody who travels to lots of airports all over the country, I wanted to pass on some advice. I know Dave's given some, Nick's given some, but I'm going to start with what our airports around the country are working with their staffs. First of all, pack efficiently, okay? Everybody wants to get their bags in the overhead. You can't put your kids in the overhead. You can't put your dogs in there, and you'll have one bag there. So share the space with the person next to you. It makes for a much more efficient loading process. And for the airline's perspective, when they take off on time and land on time, it saves them fuel, it saves them costs, and everybody gets there when they're supposed to get there. But as all of us who travel know, those people who are bringing everything but the kitchen sink onto the plane are not going to allow that to happen. For those who are returning from international travel, okay, consult with CBP1 for any updates about any declarations you might have to make as you return to this country. Customs and Border Protection does an amazing job, absolutely amazing job. And the technology they have today is so much better than when I first started to travel, where now you're going to look into a camera. And guess what? They're going to let you in. You're not going to put your hand down on global entry. They're going to look at you and say, okay, you're on the manifest, you're in, you don't wait in a long line. How many passengers don't want to go through that process? But we have to get more people to register for that. The same way we have to get more people to register for pre-check. Pay attention to TSA and Customs and Border Protection instructions and signage while you're waiting in line. Be patient. Well, we are working with our airline and airport partners to get more funding for Dave and Customs and Border Protection. Because of the amount of people who are going to be at our airports this summer, we're going to see some long lines. That's good and bad. But passengers have to be patient, because guess what? Those people who work there for Dave and his team and Customs and Border Protection, they're hardworking. They want to move those lines, but most importantly, they want it to be safe. But once they pass into the secure area, we have to know that they are safe and they're not going to cause any harm to anybody. Traveling with firearms. Anybody crazy enough to think that you can get on an airplane with a firearm should never get on an airplane. Never. Firearms cannot be taken through checkpoints, as we all know. Trying to take a firearm through a checkpoint often ends your trip before it even begins, right? So Atlanta has been one of the most forward-thinking airports on this important message, including those holograms that you saw in the airport today with the gun saying no firearms in the plane. You know, if every airport in this country, and I'm going to encourage them to do this, let's stop people thinking that you can actually board a plane with a gun. I mean, what crazy idea is that? I got a whole bunch of other notes here I want to talk about, but I'm going to run out of time because other people want to speak. Plan ahead, folks. Plan ahead. Get to the airport early. And I tell you this for a couple of reasons. If the lines are long, you want to get through them. But on the other side of the secure area are a bunch of very important people at airports, and those are our concessionaires. They want your business. And the longer you wait to get in line, the less money that can be spent in an airport, and you're going to get on one of Nick's airlines hungry. You don't want to do that. You don't want to get on one of those. Some of the food's pretty good, but you want to buy something in Atlanta before you get on the plane, right? Okay. So get into the trusted traveler programs. That's the way you move people around. What else here? 2 hours early. And with these lines, just be patient. So in order, some airports are now offering mobile ordering at our concessionaires. So if you see a long line, dial it in. By the time you get there, you'll pick up your lunch. Then you get on the plane. All right, all modern stuff. You don't have to wait on lines. Again, it's about the passenger experience. So in conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, for the last few years, it's been a real challenge for air travel. We've come so far as an industry through collaboration with our TSA customs and our airline and trade association partners. We are committed to providing the best possible passenger experience as more and more Americans take to the sky this summer. And there are going to be a lot more than we had last summer. As Dave said, we've hit record numbers. So I will conclude here and welcome my good colleague, Stephanie Gupta from the American Association of Airport Executives. Thank you for your time today.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. I know I'm not last, but most of my talking points have already been taken, so hopefully I'll be short. First of all, let me thank the Atlanta Airport, Bee and Jan Lennon, amazing Jan Lennon, and all the other fabulous Atlanta people here. You are some of the best in the industry, and I truly appreciate all your hard work. Let me also recognize the mayor. Thank you for hosting us as well. And Administrator Prikoski, you and your team have been collaborative, so helpful to work with, and all of your security personnel are the ones who are keeping us safe, working day in, day out tirelessly. Truly appreciate them. And CBP, thank you for all the efforts that you do as well. As so many people have said in front of me, summer is going to be busy. Domestic travel, international travel, it's going to be through the roof. Airports, as Kevin mentioned, airlines are all working very hard to make sure that everyone has an amazing passenger journey, as smooth as it can be. But it's not always smooth. We have weather issues. We have mechanical issues. Sometimes we don't have enough staff. So on those instances, we all need to work together to make things go right. And that is what we in this broad community are trying to do to make sure everyone has a great summer travel season. Like the people in front of me, I've got a few tips. I'm going to do the ones that others have not mentioned. I will, like everyone else, say plan ahead, come early for your flight, and be prepared for every step, including the security process. That sometimes can be lengthy. One that people haven't mentioned yet is if you're traveling internationally, make sure your passport is valid, and it is valid for 6 months ahead of time, because it is taking State Department 13 weeks to do passports right now. So if you're booking your international flight, you should check that passport first, because you might not have a passport that's valid to travel with. Another one I wanted to mention is driving to the airport. Make sure you have a plan ahead of time. A lot of airports, including Atlanta, allow you to save a spot. In the summer, you can circle and circle and circle and not find anything. So this is a really great time saver. Another thing that airports are doing is we're offering virtual queuing at certain airports, where you can reserve a spot in security or be brought to the front of the line at a designated time. In many airports that offer that virtual queuing, it's free. Try it out. Let's see how it works for you. You may get to your gate a little bit faster. If an official, a TSA official, or somebody else directs you to a different line, go to the different line. It usually means it's shorter than the long queue you're snaking through. Pay attention to them. And as Administrator Prikoski already said, pre-check is a great idea to help you get through the line. But if you're traveling internationally, think about global entry as well. That helps. And then last, build in a little bit of extra time this summer. Have a lot of patience because we have many more infrequent flyers in the airports during the summer months. And if you get to your gate faster, as Kevin said, visit our concessionaires. Enjoy the airport amenities. Look at the art. Atlanta always has amazing art displays. A lot of other airports do too. Check them out. When else are you going to see a museum quality art unless you're, well, in Washington, D.C., you can go there for free. And then also, grab a bite to eat. So With that, let me turn it over to Paul Dole, National Air Carrier Association, one of my other partners in crime. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Paul Dole, Vice President at the National Air Carrier Association. We represent the low-cost carrier and ultra-low-cost carrier sector. So Allegiant, Spirit, Frontier, Sun Country, Velo, Breeze, which are two of the newer carriers that you may have heard of. But really want to thank Mayor Dickens for being here, the TSA staff, Administrator Pekoski, really all the professionals that are here that make this airport run on a day-to-day basis, both safely and securely. We really appreciate your service and thank you for the work that you do every day. We always say that we wish we had 100 David Pekoskis across the government because his leadership has really been unbelievable over the course of the pandemic, really helped shepherd us through a very difficult time in the aviation industry. And as the administrator noted, we are at the point where we've exceeded pre-pandemic numbers in terms of passengers traveling, which is fantastic news. Two of the things that we think about from our perspective that we think are a little bit of hangovers from the pandemic, and that has to do with staffing. We continue to see challenges in the staffing arena, both from a mechanic standpoint for pilots and a number of aviation professionals, both on the airline side and on the airport side. So that's something that, while things are getting better, we continue to see some challenges there. And that's certainly true within the Federal Aviation Administration. And it has been mentioned, the air traffic control has seen some hiring challenges there, which could impact summer travel a little bit. And that's something that we're concerned about in what kind of problems may crop up once you have weather and other things that may happen. And just something for passengers to think about, that not everything may run smoothly, and everybody, both in the airline industry, airports, air traffic control, are really doing their best to get you to your place safely and as quickly as possible. The other thing that we are seeing when it comes to staffing relates to particularly how we bring people on more quickly. And we want to do that as safely and efficiently as we can, and the airlines continue to do that. But the other big thing that jumps out to us when we think about security is the issue of unruly passengers. And during the pandemic, we were seeing a significant uptick in that as it relates to those incidents that might take place on the aircraft, especially when we were dealing with masking issues. And once masking went away, we saw a bit of a downtick, but recently those numbers have kind of gone back up. And we just ask passengers to really think about that when you're traveling, that you want to be the example in terms of how you treat the airport staff, the airline staff, the TSA officers, who are really just doing their job to make sure that you have the best experience possible. And recognize that we all face challenges when traveling. Things come up and everyone is doing their best. So a little respect and understanding goes a long way, and we ask you to consider those things when you're traveling, because we have told the government time and time again, FAA, TSA, and I know they fully support us on this, that if you are an unruly passenger, that you need to be prosecuted to the full extent of the law when it comes to any kind of physical abuse or verbal abuse as well of airline staff or anyone else for that matter, even if it's your fellow passenger. So with those thoughts, I want to welcome Drew Jacoby Lemus from Regional Airline Association, and really do appreciate you all being here. Thank you.
Hey everybody, I'm Drew Jacoby Lemos with the Regional Airline Association. Thank you, Administrator Pekoski, Hartsfield-Jackson Airport, for hosting us this afternoon. Administrator, we admire your efforts to support your workforce. Security screeners are very important and highly visible. Behind them are TSA workers who are less visible but equally important. We need all of them to keep us safe and secure, especially during this busy travel season. I don't have anything to add from what my airport and airline colleagues said in terms of what we can do to make sure that we have a safe summer travel season. We need to get here early. We need to have our documented IDs. We need to recognize that the TSA screeners are here to help and facilitate travel. And then when we get on the aircraft, we all need to behave and respect our flight attendants and crew members. Regional airlines serve 98% of the nation's airports and are the only source of air service for 2/3 of the country's airports. We help ensure that the United States can have a complete and convenient air transportation system that safely connects communities small communities in rural areas with both domestic and international destinations. We're doing our part to ensure that our passengers are safe and have a reliable travel experience this summer, and that starts with being realistic with the challenges that we're facing. While we're glad to see the rebound in demand for air travel, regional airlines aren't positioned to take advantage of it due to the pilot shortage. Larger carriers are hiring regional pilots in unprecedented numbers, leaving our pilot workforce depleted with about 500 regional aircraft parked. Our network partners are forced to use larger aircraft and trim service to communities that depend on smaller regional aircraft. 308 airports, that's 72% of all U.S. airports, have lost 1 in 4 flights on average, with smaller communities facing a disproportionate impact. Now, what this all means is that passengers who live in or want to visit family in those smaller communities has less options to get there. If something happens, like a summer thunderstorm, which of course isn't atypical in an area like Atlanta, that disrupts travel plans, passengers' frustrations will likely be greater than in years past because there are less flights available for rebooking and less spare aircraft and spare crews to help recover from these disruptions. Regional airlines are investing in our workforce to retain pilots. We've dramatically raised pay. We've enhanced partnerships with colleges, flight schools, and our partners to lay out a training pipeline and career pathway for prospective pilots. However, the road to becoming a commercial airline pilot is a long and expensive one that deters far too many. For example, the average age of a new hire regional pilot is early 30s, and that's when most can afford to pursue the career path. We're literally missing out on years of productivity because of a barrier to entry. To make the career path more equitable, RA supports legislation to increase the student loan cap for accredited flight education and training programs. We also support legislation to raise the pilot retirement age. This helps regional airlines retain captains to stabilize and grow our workforce and mentor the next generation. In closing, we're all here because we believe in the power of air travel. It's worth protecting travel in communities large and small. Regional airlines are looking forward to getting travelers to their destinations safely this summer, and we thank TSA for their efforts to keep us all safe and secure. And now back to Andy Gobiel with PSVIR.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Alexa Lopez, the TSA Strategic Communications and Public Affairs Assistant Administrator. I'd also like to introduce that we have some partners in the room with the Customs and Border Protection Agency. I think we have CBP Assistant Port Director Carla Cortina and some CBP officers in the room. So just want to thank you all for being such good partners and for attending today. Thank you so much. We're going to facilitate about 10 minutes, maybe less, of some Q&A. So if you have a question, try to speak up with the echo and just state your name and outlet. And let's just do one question per outlet unless we have some extra time at the end. So my partner Andy and I will help facilitate this. So with that, we'll take the first question.
Okay. The question was about weapons and firearms here, specific to Atlanta. So we've got the boss who can answer.
Thanks. So last year we detected in our checkpoints 6,542 firearms, 88% were loaded. If a passenger realizes upon arrival at the airport or even before they get into the checkpoint that they have a firearm with them, they have a couple of options. One is to call home, have somebody come and pick it up from them. The other is if they have checked baggage and they have the proper case to secure in their checked baggage. You can carry a firearm in travel, in air travel, but it must be in your checked baggage. You need to declare it to the airline and you need to secure it properly. But most important thing is if you realize it and you don't know what to do, just ask somebody. And be a law enforcement officer. Hopefully you do that before you get to the TSA screening checkpoint. But just look for a law enforcement officer, look for an official in the airport, and they will direct you to the right level of assistance.
All right, next question. Thank you, sir.
From a staffing perspective, where is TSA right now? I know with employment just being such a major issue, kind of where do y'all stand at this point?
We stand in pretty good shape, better shape, as I said in my opening remarks, than we were last year. We're 6% or so below where we really want to be, because we want to provide some flexibility in our staffing model. We want to be able to give our officers a predictable schedule, where last summer and the summer before that we really couldn't. We worked people very, very hard over the entire 3-month period for summer travel, and really that preceded 3 months of spring break, given when the first school starts and when the last school ends. So, the most important thing for us with respect to staffing is pay. And we've known that for years. For years, TSA has not been on the same pay scale as the rest of the federal government. Fortunately, Congress approved putting us on that same pay scale in December of 2023. It's effective the 1st of July. But as I mentioned, we're already seeing roughly half of the attrition rate that we typically see. So that's very good news. It means that we need to recruit fewer people. It also means that the average age of experience in our checkpoints is higher. And then with respect to recruiting, we are seeing many, many more applicants applying for the positions open that we have. Last thing I'd mention is we do have that national deployment force, 1,000 people who volunteered when we asked them, that we will move throughout the country over the course of this summer, like we did to a lesser degree during spring break, to ensure that as we identify staffing shortfalls, working with the airports and with the carriers, that we can pre-position them in airports of need. Thank you.
Hi, it's Chris Van Cleve from CBS News. And a question for the Atlanta airport folks, if I could. You're forecast to be the busiest airport of the Memorial Day holiday stretch. As you're talking to the million-plus people that are going to pass through here, anything you could tell them about how to do that better or to reduce the risk that they may run into a disruption, be it extra time for parking if you think your parking lots are going to be full or whatever? We're looking for a little news you can use.
And it's 2.1, not 1 million. 2.1 million.
Thank you for that correction, Andy. Yes, as everyone mentioned today, every organization is all about preparation. Preparation is key from the time you leave your home. ATL.com is the first free source that one can use to see what the passenger wait times are, to see what parking decks are available that are open, that are open at that particular time. It also gives you an idea what concessionaires are open. So it gives you a lot of information that can help prepare you as you are driving in. Then you can make those choices well in advance. And as stated, we need for you to arrive at least 2 hours early for domestic, 3 hours early for international, to give yourself, to reduce that stress, to give you time to, when you go through the screening checkpoint, to relax when you're at your gate and enjoy the amenities. And one of the things that we want to continue to press emphasis on, please, as it was stated, check your bag. Please do not bring your weapon through the security checkpoint. That is key if you don't remember anything else. Thank you.
Thanks for that reminder. Other questions?
In terms of staffing, I also wanted to ask about Atlanta in particular, whether the TSA staffing levels here at Hartsfield-Jackson are similar to that 6% below where you want to be, or any different, and whether the national deployment will be going to or from Atlanta for this period.
What outlet were you with? Atlanta Journal-Constitution. So the administrator, and then we have FSD, Robert Spinden, can also help answer this.
Yeah, no, thanks for the question. And Rob Spinnen and his team have been doing a fantastic job in recruiting here in Atlanta. I believe they're actually donating teams to the National Deployment Force, which is a difference. They were a little short last year, so a lot of recovery here at Atlanta, and I think he's best to speak to it.
Thank you, sir, and thank you for the question. Here in Atlanta, we're actually over our allocation by about 2%, so we're well positioned for this weekend and the ensuing summer.
Other questions? Okay. And I think there's some time for folks to interview several of our principals here at the end. I'm going to hand it right over to Andy.
Quick and to the point, again, thank you very much for coming. Go to ATL.com if you're traveling through Atlanta for, as Jan said, the latest information. Have a safe and enjoyable holiday travel season. Thank you.